Welcome back, everybody. I wanted to do a quick video today. Just it's something that's been on my mind for a little while because I've been hearing it mentioned a lot throughout the hobby, and that is the origin of the multiple player card. I've heard a lot of people kind of indicate that the 1953 Bowman color was really what kind of kicked it off, and I'm here to kind of do a video today to kind of maybe change your minds a little bit on that. I don't disagree that the Bowman color set was kicking it off for after post-war. So that was the first ones that I was able to kind of locate where they had multiple player cards after the end of World War II. Whereas there are actually several sets where there's multiple players on the same card pre-war. And so that's what I wanted to kind of take you down there and see if I can maybe change your mind just a little bit. Because it's kind of been something that's been, for lack of a better way of saying, it's been a little bit of a pet peeve for me, but I think individual preference is, where people want to kind of sit with it. And I don't disagree with that. I think that's totally fine. If you think that these cards I'm going to show you and these links I'm going to show you don't really cut the mustard in the ways you kind of think of multiple player cards. Then I'm going to show you some of the ones that I actually kind of enjoyed that are in my collection that are at least graded at this point. A lot in binders, but I was just pulling out stuff that was graded at this point. So let's jump in it. So I'm going to show you a few cards first. So I'm not as good at turn of the last century, but I know that there's a couple of multiple player cards in my collection and from 1911. And these are the Mecha double folders. These are ones I've shown just recently on the channel too, at least the Ed Welsh card. So one could argue that this wasn't intended to be a multiple player card, even though there's multiple players featured on it, because when you fold this over, it's supposed to be a unique image, if you will. So I can buy that argument if it's not. People don't consider this to be a multiple player card. And here's one other example. This is Bobby Wallace on here from the St. Louis Browns, Hall of Famer. And he's not even prominently featured until the back. And actually kind of show you just a few more examples from that set and kind of let you make your mind up in this one, if you think this is kind of like the origin of it or not. So let me go ahead and pick this up. So I want to show you just the first, starting with pulled one here, and this is the Ty Cobb card. This is the one that has multiple Hall of Famers on it because we have Sam Crawford on one side. But then we also have on the other side, we have Ty Cobb. So let me pull this one up real quick. I'll share this tab here. You can see this actually would be folded over to kind of indicate another player image. This one doesn't kind of look like Ty Cobb. So I could see why maybe that's not like a very popular card as a result of it. So again, let you decide. I feel like these cards kind of fit the criteria, at least for a multiple player card, even if people would prefer to see them on the same image together. And that's going to be a theme with another one I'm going to show you, which I don't have an example of, and that's the 1941 double. I think it's a double play. I think that's what they're called. Let me pull those up real quick here. Yeah, it's a double play card. So I'm going to pull a couple of those up real quick here. You've probably seen these before. They're not really very popular in the hobby. From this era, I think a lot of people would obviously prefer the play ball set that has a lot of colored images and things like that, but there's multiple players on this card. Now, you could make an argument that in this one that features Johnny Mize, one of the few cards that actually has him in a St. Louis Cardinal uniform where he's most famous, they're not in the same image together. And I would agree, that would definitely not fit that criteria of being a multiple player card, despite having multiple players featured on the same card. The same is true for 1935 Gaudi, which I actually didn't pull up at this point. I should have probably pulled up an example of that, where they're separate images on the same card. So it kind of fits in that same bucket. Is it really a multiple player image card? And I could definitely go along with people saying that, no, it's not on that one. So let me show you like one other example here. I'll share this tab instead. Here we have Joe Cronin and Jimmy Fox. But these are like pretty good values if you ever wanted to kind of go out and pick up some of these cards. There's actually even a Joe DiMaggio here. So let me share this tab. You see Charlie Keller and Joe DiMaggio on the same cards. This is actually pretty inexpensive early career Joe DiMaggio that you could pick up. And it's a multiple player card, so it's something you can kind of consider adding into your collection. Now, where I will say, and I feel very strong about this, that these are actually like the first multiple player cards that I could find, because they actually were two players in the same image together in the same photograph, and it was printed as a baseball card. And these are the 1936 Gaudi wide pens. And I have one example that I've shown recently on the channel. This has Wes and Rick Farrell in it, the brothers, obviously, that I featured recently on one of my videos. But they're not the only ones in this set. Now, some people don't think that it's kind of like a legit set, and they kind of go with the 1936 Gaudi, which is a little bit of a different format. It's much smaller cards. But let me show you some of the other ones you can kind of get in here. So let me pull those up real quick. What I kind of like about them is you can get really cool vintage. This one's obviously been treated kind of poorly. You can see there's pinholes in here and it's been taped together. But sometimes you can get Hall of Famers kind of featured in the card. So that's one example of it. Here we also have another. Let me show this one. We have Bill Werber and Ben Chapman. Not Hall of Famers, but obviously people that at least had made a name for themselves during the time that they played. But here's like probably the most famous card from this set. And it was during actually the rookie year for Joe DiMaggio, and has obviously the Hall of Fame manager McCarthy with him. So that's a card I think it's also still kind of affordable to be able to kind of pick up for an early Joe DiMaggio card. It's a little cheaper than the wide pen that he's featured all by himself. And I think it's a pretty cool image. I can see it was probably during spring trainings. I think those are like trees in the background as opposed to a stadium that you'd see during the season. But the pinstripes are obviously prominently displayed in this picture, as well as the New York baseball cap. I think it's just like a fantastic image. Now, these are oversized cards. So that's, I think, also something that kind of deters people away from wanting to be able to kind of collect these. They're very delicate too, so they bend and crease very easily. I don't really know the exact origin why Gaudi put out two different sets that year, and why I think they're kind of considered like Gaudi premiums, if you will. So they're kind of like considered to be a little bit more like a photograph card. So I think some people then like will discredit that as not being the first baseball card, if you will, in the traditional sense that's in like a wax pack packaged with other cards. But I feel like for the record, the wide pens are probably the first double player image cards, and that's where sometimes I have just kind of like kind of not a reaction of some sorts. I'm not like in strong disagreement, because I do agree that the Bowmans are the first post-war edition of multiple player images, and they're fantastic. And there's two in the set. I don't have the other one that has Mantle, Berra, and Bauer on it, but I will get that at some point. But I just didn't want to like I wanted to be able to kind of like at least kind of set the record straight, as my video title says, that there were multiple player image cards that were available during pre-war. And there's probably many others that I don't know, because I'm not the most knowledgeable pre-war guy out there, but there's definitely some good ones that you can pick up, including those DiMaggios that I kind of showed you. And just some other ones that are in my collection. This was a Topps first attempt at a multiple player card. It is the O'Brien brothers, who played for Pittsburgh in the 1950s. I got this in a lot years ago, and I thought it was kind of cool because it was the only card I think I had at that time from that era where there was two players in the same card, and I never really knew anything about them at that point. And the other ones I just want to kind of show are some ones that I have graded that are in my collection that have multiple player images on there, and these are legit as far as like fitting the definition of what we were kind of talking about. And here's what I got a while ago, and it has Richie Ashburn and Willie Mays on it from the 1959 Topps set. It's an awesome little image here, and obviously anything that has Willie Mays on it is really cool to me. And then probably my favorite one that I have so far in my collection, it has Stan Musial, at least at the time of his retirement, was probably known to be the greatest National League hitter of all time, maybe player of all time. That's debatable, obviously, but everything is debatable. Next to probably what was the future greatest National League player of all time, Willie Mays, as he was really in his prime at that point. And I think it's just such an affordable card, considering you get two all-time great players on the same card. I just couldn't pass it up, and I would encourage people to kind of consider picking this up from the 63 set, because I think it's such a good value out there. So that's all. Like I meant to kind of just start a conversation. Feel free to comment below if you like disagree with me, or if you agree with me, or anything else you wanted to kind of throw in there. If there's sets that I even missed from the other pre-war that have multiple players on it, because I'm open to learning more. Again, I will not argue with anybody that wants to say that the Bowman set is the first one. That's fine, because I think the way that the Gaudi wide pens are released a little bit different. But there are other things out there. So that's where I kind of wanted to share that with you guys this afternoon, and hope you guys have a great weekend.